The subject of this sermon was suggested to me by a cable TV reality show. Now, I don't watch much TV, especially not the various reality shows that have become so common in the past decade. However, I do go to the gym for a workout 2 or 3 times a week, and the gym has some 20 TV screens along one wall, each carrying one of the popular cable channels. You might say I can't escape it. I can't hear the sound from any of them, but sometimes I find myself looking at one absent-mindedly while working one of the ellipticals. So sometime last year, I noticed one of the screens showing a series of scenes in a forest or a jungle with a couple of people who appeared to be nude. Before long, the show title appeared, and I learned that it was called Naked and Afraid. Well, this was intriguing, since nudity on TV has long been a taboo. So I made a point of learning a bit more about it when I got home from the gym. As with Survivor, the first hit reality show some 15 years ago, the premise is to take some everyday people and strand them somewhere in the world with minimal supplies. Naked and Afraid takes this to what may be the limit, so far anyhow. It takes 2 people, 1 man and 1 woman, who have never met each other before, and strands them in the jungle with no food, no supplies, and no clothes. Now, admittedly, the people who are chosen for this are youthful, in excellent physical shape, and have some, perhaps extensive, background in survival skills. It certainly is a tough challenge, with or without clothes, but the creators of the show threw in the additional lure of nudity, just in case the situation itself wasn't enough to pull in an audience. Anyhow, I found myself wondering if some of our long-standing taboos around nudity, especially on TV, were beginning to fade. I also discovered that Naked and Afraid is just one of at least 10 TV shows in recent seasons that have some element of nakedness in them. While none of these would qualify as great TV, or is that an oxymoron, nor have they been among the top-rated shows, this number of offerings does suggest that the long-standing tension in our culture between disapproval of nudity and fascination with it remains strong. The better-known shows in this category include Dating Naked, a dating show where potential couples go on first dates while completely naked. In complete contrast to Naked and Afraid, these dates take place on tropical beaches and at nudist resorts with good food and pleasant amenities. Number 2, The Naked Office, which takes the old idea of casual Fridays to its natural limit. Yes, employees show up for work in the nude. I'm not making this up. I do have to give this show credit for coming up with a way to make watching people work in an office something other than boring. By the way, it seems that some of the groups that have tried this decide they rather like it after getting past some initial awkwardness. And finally, number 3, Buying Naked. This show is about a real estate agent who works with nudists trying to find a home in nudist communities. This is probably the most realistic of this group of so-called reality shows. There are several more, some broadcast only in the UK or Europe, but you get the idea. For that matter, you can probably find them just by searching your cable lineup at home. However, any notion that I had that the nudity taboo was fading was quickly quashed when a bit of sampling of segments of these shows made it quite clear that, as presented on American TV at least, the fig leaf still remains. Whether actual or digitally simulated, the usually covered parts of the body are blocked from view in some way. If all else fails, they're simply blurred or pixelated, leaving some rather weird and, in my opinion, unattractive images at times. So while TV may not be ready to broadcast uncensored images of nude people, I do note that the people in the programs are shown in a positive way and not held up to ridicule. The contestants on Naked and Afraid are gutsy people dealing with challenging situations. The people in Naked often look and act generally like people you would expect to find in a contemporary office. And Dating Naked may be the dumbest of the lot, but no worse or probably better than many of the other dating shows where the contestants wear clothes. So why should any of this be of interest to you youths? TV marketing stunts exploiting the old technique of titillation to attract audience is not something consistent with any of our values, really. The deeper question that I think is worthy of exploration is our relationship to our own bodies. We all have a body, and our bodies come in an infinite variety of shapes and sizes and colors and even gender characteristics. Despite this commonness, our social norms are that bodies are mostly covered by clothing. Even in circumstances where little or no clothing is required for comfort or safety, certain body parts must still be covered. On the other hand, some in the general public at least are irresistibly drawn to watching naked people on TV shows. Go figure. One can imagine a visitor from another planet arriving here and observing all this and wondering what has possessed us. Depending on our religious orientations, we may see ourselves as made in the image of God, or as in our principles, each possessing inherent worth and dignity. Yet we hide our bodies, lest we be ashamed. This shame thing has been around a long time. As someone who tends to prefer history as described by science over the legend of the Bible, I am nonetheless impressed by the story of Adam and Eve. I hear it as an attempt by our ancient forebears who, as their powers of self-awareness and ability to conceptualize developed, tried to figure out the world in which they found themselves. Although they had no hunch about evolution as we understand it today, they nonetheless guessed that humans must have, sometime in the past, lived more like all the other animals that surrounded them. The story calls particular attention to one such aspect, that Adam and Eve were naked, just like all the other animals. Not only that, but they were naked and not ashamed. Virtually all the various translations and renderings are quite specific on that point. The story goes on, of course, and among the more abstract versions says that they eventually ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge, thus becoming aware of themselves, including that they were naked, whereupon this awareness caused them to be ashamed and to set about making coverings. The storytellers who developed and carried the story down through the oral tradition took as a given that we are ashamed when naked, so that must have somehow come along with the knowledge of good and evil. As UUs, we mostly set aside shame as an inescapable part of our being, just as we have set aside original sin as something inherent and from which we can be saved only by divine intervention. Our principles have inspired us to do courageous work over many decades to lift society out of the prejudices that make some people less worthy than others. In areas of race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender inclusiveness, and equality, we have brought about change by living it and being it. In the OWL program, we have taken a fundamental part of who we are, our sexuality, out of the darkness of shame and taught our children that it is their birthright and that they deserve to be fully who they are in that realm. We have also chosen to remove the shame surrounding our bodies as part of the OWL curriculum. In the core junior high program, as well as in other age groups, participants look at body image, their feelings about their own bodies. They explore societal influences on body image and learn how positive and negative body image can affect a person's sexual attitudes, decision-making, and behaviors. This is a tough challenge in an ever-increasing presence of media images and influence that we all, young people especially, are exposed to. Advertisers relentlessly promote images of body perfection that few of us, young or old, can live up to. The natural naked body is rarely shown in current media, including, as I noted at the outset, the TV programs that offer nakedness as a key element of their content. The fact that body parts are pixelated and blurred sends an inescapable message. The message is that you may not show yourself naked, even if you choose to. This is a distinct twist on the characterization of nakedness in the story of Adam and Eve. There, Adam and Eve were compelled by shame to cover their bodies after eating the forbidden fruit. But nothing in the story suggests that it would have been a sin for them not to have covered themselves. Indeed, God himself comes looking for them in the garden. And when he finds them, Adam says that they hid from God because they were ashamed of their nakedness. Well, God was ticked. I'm reading a bit between the lines here, but I figure God said something like, I gave you beautiful bodies, and now you cover them because you're ashamed? Get out of here. And the rest, as they say, is history.